Oh, hello. It, I am live in all the places, I think. Well, not all the places, some of the places. Good morning, everybody. Saturday morning, bright and early. If you're on the West Coast, you're probably seeing this on the replay because I'm sure maybe you're still asleep on a Saturday morning. I'm Sarah, founder of the Sisters Enchanted, and I'm doing these live streams here. I'm looking at two different camera, my phone and my laptop here. So if I'm looking around, that's why. But I'm doing this right now for two reasons. Three reasons actually. One, we're going to talk about the full moon. Two, I'm doing a little bit of a tech check to see if I can be live in the app in an easy way at the same time that I'm live everywhere else. Theoretically, I should be able to do that right from my laptop, but I can't ever seem to make it work. So I'm trying to use my phone and my computer. So I'm doing a little tech check as we get gear up for Expedition to Soul starting Monday. And we're going to just, make sure we're all ready for that. So 3 things we're doing today. 1, talking about the full moon. 2, I'm just doing a tech check here to see if I can't manage all of this. And 3, Expedition to Soul starts Monday. So good morning to those of you who are already saying hello. I can see some of you here. It is, like I said, it's 9:23 in the morning as I'm doing this on the East Coast of the US. So super early. Those of you in the West Coast probably still sleeping. Maybe, I don't know. I get up early, so I've been up for hours. I'll tell you, I've been up since 3:30 this morning. That's how early I get up sometimes. I've been awake for 6 hours already, almost. But full moon, let's start there. I got my tech going. I know it's probably going to be a little challenging for me to follow all the comments. So if I don't answer your comment, I know that we've got Team TSE floating around, probably helping you out with some answers to any questions you may have. But let's talk about this full moon first. Full moon in Libra. Why do we work with the moons? What is this all about? Well, before we had the time system that we have now, right? Folks measured time by the seasons, by the sunlight, and by the moons. The thing about the lunar cycle is we can see it happening around us. We can see the moon transforming if we can find it and see it, of course. But we can literally see the moon move, the moon transforming. And when we pause to be present and look at those ebbs and flows, the growing, the shrinking, we can stop to see that same goodness happening in our own lives, in our own energy, right? So we can see these growings in our own life. We can see the shrinkings in our own life. Now, at a new moon is when we set intentions. We set intentions at the new moon. And that's when the moon is dark. We cannot see it in the sky. 2 weeks later, thereabout, we end up at the full moon, where the sky is illuminated in the day by the sun, and then the sun illuminates the moon. So what does this do? What do we do with a full moon? You'll hear a lot about releasing at a full moon, but a full moon is actually, because of that illumination, it's a beautiful invitation to manifest, to create, but to do that through releasing. So what the sun is doing to make the moon look full to us is reflecting on the moon. They're opposites right now. When the moon is dark at the new moon, the sun and moon are in such a position that the sun's not reflecting on the moon for us, right? So we can't see the moon. Right now, the sun is illuminating that moon. Well, the moon in astrology, it's your inner self, it's your subconscious self. So the sun is illuminating our shadow stuff. It's illuminating our subconscious stuff. So when we're releasing at the full moon, which is today, we want to release so we can create. We want to look at how our shadow selves may have shown up in the last 2 weeks during the time in which we were to be growing our intentions. So whatever our intention was for the new moon, and it's okay if you didn't set one. They happen every 29 days or so. There's another new moon. Set another intention or start now. It's totally fine. But if you think back even on the last 2 weeks, this was that growing sort of energy for us. And if there was something in your life that you were setting out to grow, even if you didn't sit down to set a new moon intention, maybe you were like, oh, I'm going to clean my house all last week and you never did it. Or maybe you did do it and you want to sit down today and like really dissect what gave me the motivation to do that. What was it that led me to actually conquer my shadow and get that done? But if there's been something in the last few weeks that you want to really like look at and say, what is going on with my shadow self? Here's where we want to release that in order to call in something else. So here's the thing about energy, and we're going to go over a little bit of energy stuff, calling back in, claiming our energy on the first day of Expedition to Soul, which starts on Monday. And I want to remind everybody, I'm looking at my phone and my computer. That's why I'm looking back and forth. We're going to call in our energy on Monday. And when we take our energy to release something, when we're releasing a little bit, right, we need to fill it back in. Think about if you dig a hole, or if you're at the beach, if you've ever been to a sandy area and you dig the hole out, well, it fills back in over time. The wind or the water will fill it back in. It doesn't just stay a hole, it fills with stuff. If you clean out a drawer in your kitchen, it inevitably becomes filled with stuff again, unless you have an intention for it, unless you filled it with something else. So if you filled it with drawer organizers, or if you filled the hole you made with rocks or something, and the same is true of your intention. So if you release today at the full moon, you're like, I release my whatever, my ties that bind me to not getting my intentions and not manifesting my dreams. You have to fill it back in with something, or else it just fills in with junk again. Just like when you clean out a drawer at home and it gets full of crap all over again. So we want to fill it back in. And that's what we do at a new moon, or at a full moon, excuse me. We're releasing so we can manifest, but we have to know, what are we filling it with, right? And the next 2 weeks, that's this waning portion of the lunar cycle. That's when the moon is, it's shrinking back up again. And we'll repeat the cycle again, starting at the next new moon. So at the full moon, we have this framework we use in our holistic witchery program. It's our 5-eye spiral. And we set intentions with the new moon. We integrate with the first quarter. We do shadow work at the full moon, which is today. And that's what we say is the insight phase. We're being insightful. What is going on for us here? And then the third quarter moon, that's about a week from now. That's when we ideate. That's when we think about, what's the future look like? How can I be the architect of my future, right? And that's all this next 2 weeks energy. So we're releasing in order to create. We release today. We let that all go. A week from now, we're dreaming about how we create the future for us. Now, this lunar cycle is marked by the new moon. Some folks do follow a lunar cycle full moon to full moon, which is totally cool also. Sort of traditionally in the magical world, if you're looking at the rhythm of seasons, we start at the new moon with a lunar cycle, similar to how we would start a new year. If you think the new year is January 1st, well, the shortest day of the year is Yule. And that's about, the 21st of December. So it's close to that new year. And then everything grows from there. So the same, we reset at the new moon. This is an Aries lunar cycle. So the sun is in Aries. The lunar cycle, that with the new moon, it's always in the same sign that the sun is in. Again, because they're in the same sign at the beginning of the lunar cycle, which is why we can't see the moon in the sky, because they're in the same place or they're in the same sign. So there's no reflection, right? Astrologically speaking. So this is an Aries lunar cycle. That means this lunar cycle has the energy of Aries to it. Aries in mythology is the god of war. Aries is this, I don't know, go to war energy, this get stuff done, this fire energy. It's a fire sign. It's a think without acting kind of sign. If you think of tarot, I might think of like a Knight of Wands energy, just like running straight into battle. And that is how we started this lunar cycle. Now, the full moon today is in Libra. Libra is balance, the scales of justice here. It's finding balance. Now, Aries is not assigned to find balance. So when you're doing your shadow work today, what could be really interesting is looking at how the last 2 weeks were for you in terms of taking action, growing goals in your life. Again, this could be just like maybe you wanted to do some spring cleaning. Maybe you wanted to start a exercise routine or like throw away all the junk in your house. Maybe you wanted to meet with your accountant because taxes, y'all. Whatever it is, money stuff, health stuff, romance stuff. Maybe you woke up and you were like, I am not going to pick fights with my partner today, all in the last 2 weeks. And then today we're going to look back on that and do some of that shadow work. And with Libra, we're being called to examine balance. Now, I can say that in the last 2 weeks, I've had that Aries energy has hit me hard. I walked into, we have a big 44-foot fifth wheel camper. And if anybody knows how those are designed, there's this big metal like pin that comes out. It's big out of the front to hitch it into the back of a truck. And it's heavy and metal and it's not movable. And I turned around walking fast and walked straight into it. I still have a bump on my head. Yesterday, I hurt myself again when I was moving quickly. I hurt myself another day, dropped a bookshelf on my finger when I was moving quickly. So obviously my Sagittarius self, I'm very Sagittarius, has been impacted greatly by this Aries energy the last 2 weeks. And today, this weekend, I really need to take a breath, release that need to move so rapidly, slow down, and come back into balance and really examine what happens when I keep moving with this sense of urgency, right? Not just obviously to my physical body, but all around the world, why do how is that serving me? How can I maybe bring some balance here? Which is not something that I'm particularly great at. But this is what we are in. We are in the full moon. I see some folks I'm trying to look at the comments too. They're a little far away from me to see on my phone and they're like light. And so it's hard to read, but I just see, Aisha's saying still need to do those taxes. Yeah, I know I had to file an extension. Don't wish to speak of it. But I can, and then when you do this time and time again, this is how you really learn a lot about yourself and change your life. So I share stories, my life looked entirely different 10 years ago. It looked very different 5 years ago than it does now. And this is what we teach in Holistic Witchery. And we come back to again and again and again. And it's why in our membership, we invite people to join us at these 4 key lunar phases to take a minute, take a breath, and check in with themselves. Because when you can really reflect, you see how you energetically react to the seasons, how you work with them. And I know that personally, this sort of first week of a lunar cycle, the first quarter of a year from Yule to Ostara, I am like, it's challenging for me to kind of lean into that intention energy and just release to being. That is admittedly challenging for me. So when we get to the first quarter moon, when we get to Ostara in March, I am like, sun's awake, I'm awake. Anyone who's seen Frozen, and I am all in. And I can recount back every year for the past 5 years in April, I have had some kind of thing, March and April specifically. This year it was these issues I've given myself. Last year, I felt like a walking zombie. It turned out I had terrible anemia and some other problems, but that was April last year that it really came to a head. And I was like, there's something wrong with me. The year before that, I had hives and poison ivy all at the same time in April. The year before that, there was a problem with my car that was like this mystery, and I have a Honda, and a Honda engineer actually flew out to look at it because they couldn't figure out like what is going on. Nobody could solve the problem. The year before that, I went into labor unexpectedly 2 weeks early, stood up from the dinner table. My water broke everywhere. Contractions one after another right after that. So, like I can look at these things, and I'm sure if I think back even more or look at old journals, I can see a further back pattern of this. So for me, I want to look at this full moon today and really just think about that and say, I see what you're doing here, universe. I see. And when am I going to heed the call, right? Maybe not this year, maybe not next year. But when you do this over and over and over again, and this spiral framework that we teach, we say the more you do it, the more your intuition grows. That's why it's a spiral, because the more you learn about yourself, the more self-aware you are, and the more you trust yourself. This year, I quickly was like, yes, this is that spring energy getting me. Where in the past, it took me longer to see that. but it's because I do it over and over and over again. All right, let's see here. I'm just going to look at some comments if I can. Let's see here. Vianney says, can't wait for Holistic Witchery. 5 eyes are still a tad confusing when doing my work for Enchanted Journey. Yeah, and that's why actually we don't have our membership open to people anymore who aren't in Holistic Witchery, because we found that so many people want to, and this isn't speaking to you, my friend. This is just in general. So many people want to learn astrology. They want to learn the herbs and the crystals, and they want to learn, the candles, and like maybe learn about the moon phases. But the thing is that's all just mind clutter unless you know how to change your life with it, unless you know how to manifest with it, unless you know how to do shadow work with it. And that's what we teach in Holistic Witchery. So we go through that, and from there, that's like digging up the trenches of yourself. And then you can use the crystals, then use the herbs, then use tarot, then use everything else on top of it. But we've been doing this for 6 years, worked with thousands of people online, and I can very confidently say that the way that we pull in Holistic Witchery first is the way to go. It is the way to go. Otherwise, before, when we just had our membership open for enrollment, people would join, and the kinds of questions we would get in the group about, like, I have this problem, what should I do? And we were like, oh my goodness, that's in a program you haven't taken. Like, the answer to that is you need to do the self work first. So I think it was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago or so, year and a half maybe, that we made the decision not to have the membership just open widely anymore, and kind of going through Holistic Witchery. We even encourage our astrology students to do Holistic Witchery because that applies to the shadow work elements of astrology. And as a business owner who helps other people create online businesses from time to time, even there, I say, I could tell you all the strategy in the world, but if you haven't worked on yourself, it's not going to matter, because the mindset things, the confidence in yourself, the belief, that's what you need first, right? That's what you need first. So anyway, let's see here. Yeah, Patty's excited for Holistic. Again, I'm looking at 2 devices. Theoretically, I should be able to do this from one, but I can't ever get it to work. So as a person who spends a lot of time on the internet, you would think I'd be way more tech savvy than I am, but I'm actually not. Let's see here. O'Shea is a tax extension too. Yes. See, I don't have it all together. Taxes, namely, I don't. And I have an accountant and a bookkeeper, and I still don't have it all together. I was like, how can I avoid filling out my tax organizer as long as possible? And then I got it in, and then my accountant was like, you got it in so late, I just do not have time to get it done. It's like, fair enough. Fair enough. Let's see here. Naomi says, astrology and Holistic Witchery help me understand how to navigate this so much better. So yes, I agree. Naomi, it's going to be on the podcast, I think next week or the week after. Let's see here. Kimberly says, been doing herbs, crystals, tarot for 20 years, finally asking for help to learn what Holistic Witchery teaches, because without that true knowledge of self, it's still getting me nowhere. Yes, and self is the hardest and most magical tool. It's so true. I will say also that the more that I do the work on myself, and this isn't everybody's path, and don't get me wrong, I still love crystals, I love tarot, I love all these things and working with the moon, but the more that I work on myself and the things I apply to Holistic Witchery, when I don't do readings for people, we have a new higher tier level to our membership program, and we do one-on-one sessions with those folks. And I did a past life reading yesterday for one of those folks. And anybody who's had one from like a giveaway or something for me in the past few years, I don't use cards. It's just myself now. When I want to release and manifest, it's typically just myself. Working with the moon, of course, I look to the sky, see what the moon phase is, but it's more self-driven. It's more believing, trusting in me than gathering things to do it. Not that I don't still do that, right? Like I still have crystals, I still have tarot, I still look to see what sign the moon is in, I still use herbs, but my go-to is always myself first. And then should I happen to have a moment or my things are handy, I'll grab the crystal. I'll grab the, the other things that I need. But let's see. Yvonne says, so glad to hear you talk about mind clutter. Yeah, mind clutter. I'm telling you, it is the thing. No matter what you do, if you have a bunch of mind clutter, it's just, I'll be, point blank, it won't get you anywhere. You got to deal with the mind clutter. Let's see here. Anna says, being newer to this journey last year, I find it so affirming when I deep dive into my behavior in the last 2 weeks. My need to create more urgently, spring clean, get rid of clutter. Even last night when I pulled my rune for today was all leading to what I've been putting out into the universe, confirming this journey is the one I should be on. Love it. Love it. Yeah, really just for the full moon, that's happening today. Think back to the last 2 weeks and just sort of what went right. What would you say didn't go right? What do you want more of? What maybe feels stagnant? And today is the day to do that shadow work. And the next layer to that would be looking at the signs for the lunar cycle. We had an Aries new moon and we have a Libra full moon. So if you know what those speak to, if you know anything about astrology or your birth chart, another level then would to be looking at where those things are touching in your chart, where you can get some lessons from that. The next level would be to really zoom out and look at the seasonality. So right now we are between Ostara and Beltane. So we are in this integrate portion of the year, but we're not quite yet at Beltane. So we're in the first half of the integrate portion. So it's where we're really starting to put together our action plan for our intentions for the whole year. So then we can look at that. Like we're in an action phase, we're in an action sign, and then now we're at a balance kind of full moon. And where does that lead us through the next lunar cycle? So the more that we learn about these seasons, these cycles, these rhythms, the more we can tap into our own truth, our own energy. And then you can get really wild and apply on top of that your hormonal cycle, if you'd like to, the temperament of other people in your life, their astrology, and just keep kind of adding it on. But also you don't have to do all that. You can also not do any of that and just say, how were the last 2 weeks? How were they? Wild, comfy, not comfy? What do I want more of? Today's a full moon. What do I release in order to make space for what I actually want, what I want to feel, what I want to have, what I want to experience, how I want to embody this life? And you can just do that. I think sometimes we put this pressure on ourselves to figure out all the things, what crystal should I use? What tarot spread? What, what associations are for this day of the week that we're on. And I think all of that can just make you feel really, really overwhelmed and stressed out. And as a person who's been doing this for years and years and years, it is rare that I go in that deep on anything because it's within me, right? The knowing is within me. What I need to know, what I need to hear, what I need to make happen is within me. That said, if you're really wanting to ground and center in this energy, you can add all those layers on. If you're really deep in creating something, you can add all those layers on. You don't have to, though. And I, for the most part, wouldn't recommend it because I think that it takes away from, I think it adds more mind clutter, right? Trying to get everything right and do everything right. Let's see. Aisha says, oh, the hormones. Yeah, somebody else must have said the hormones too here. Oh, Emmy says the hormones, right? That was another thing I discovered last year. I had estrogen dominance and anemia, and I have adenomyosis, which is endometriosis inside of your uterus. I have back problems I didn't realize I had, an unpleasant, irritable bowel situation. Not that anybody wants to know that, but that was all things that I worked with last year. And I've had to really say, how does this all apply to my energy? How does this apply to what I'm creating and releasing? And I'm just going to try to get rid of this notification on my phone and come back to self, right? And what I've seen for myself in the last 2 weeks for sure is my run around like a crazy person energy has not been helpful. Like I said, I walked straight into a big metal thing, full speed, I still have a lump there. Yesterday, I can't even explain what happened to my foot because I was stepping up a step into my garage and the wind closed the door as I was stepping up and I took a chunk of skin off the back of my foot. Pretty deep. It's still bleeding through the Band-Aid and it happened yesterday afternoon. So but I was rushing to get something done and the wind did not help. But that was me not slowing down, not holding the door because it was windy. I was just going for it. So me really looking at today, Sarah, balance, calm it down, like come back into yourself. What is the urgency? And having to ask myself that. All right. So all of this too ties into Expedition to Soul, which starts on Monday, where we will be having you look at yourself. Just really look at yourself. That's what Expedition to Soul is. It's an invitation to look at your energy, look at your past self, your future self, to look at your shadow stuff, to create a magical support tool to remind you of the work that you're doing. And then the last day, we're going to talk about this 5 eyes a little bit more with the intention setting, the integrating, the insight through shadow work, and that future vision, ideating your future. And of course, expanding your intuition all along the way. So yeah, Yvonne's telling me to slow down. I know. One would think that I would, a couple of years ago in the spring, I was so wild I was doing yard work and I was just doing it so unabashedly that I pulled up my sleeves, and we have tons of poison ivy in my yard. And I knew it. And I was like, I'm going to get poison ivy. But I did it anyway. And I got poison ivy, turned into a staph infection. I don't know. I really do need to slow down. This Aries spring energy does me no favors. It like gets me going. And we did a workshop last month with a small group of people where we looked at time as related to your birth chart. And my like Aries 8 a.m. time, my 8 a.m. is like an Aries energy, which totally makes sense for me too, because I just get up and get at it. And, they're like really looking at that get up and go energy and where it serves me, because it definitely serves me. Don't get me wrong, it serves me. But where does it also become a hindrance? And I need to find that balance to it, Anyway, yes, Christina's sharing. I was hanging from tree limbs. I know. I'm telling you, Aries energy just like does something to me. I don't know what it is. And I'm a Sagittarius, so maybe that's why. But it does something. It does something to me for sure. Anyway, I am going to run. I have an appointment with someone in 10 minutes. But thank you all for being here and honoring my little tech check here to see if I can pull this off and do my phone and the computer at the same time. And I hope you have a lovely, lovely full moon today. And those of you who might be celebrating the holiday this weekend, I hope you enjoy that. And I will see you all on Monday for the first day of Expedition to Soul. All right. Have a great day, everyone. I got to end in both places. That's awkward.